Not far from London, England, of course. I think it's about 25 miles, is Bisley. I think it's in the district of Surrey. And there's a famous, you probably know, you've heard of Bisley shooting matches. And the Century Range, I think, is quite famous. Actually, the whole club is well known from a James Bond film, if you pay attention to that kind of thing, which I didn't know until just before filming. 1962, The Living Daylights. I actually haven't seen that film. I'll have to watch that film. And one of our subscribers, I chat with him once in a while, Adrian, is a member of the Bisley Club. It takes some doing to become a member, and he has nothing but the highest things to say about that facility. I'd love to shoot there myself one day. I wrote down some of the names of their ranges just because I like the names. I'll read them to you. There's the Short Siberia, that's a catchy name, Century Range. These go from 100 to 600 yards, but I don't know which is which. And it's, it was well managed. And I looked at some pictures, and I mean, it looks like a fantastic royal estate. And maybe it is. Stickle Down Range, Bisley Buffalo Range, Zero Range, Winans, Melville, and Chalesmore. And they have rules about how many feet per second. I wrote down 3,300 feet per second. I'm not sure whether that's exactly correct. And a maximum 3,300 foot-pounds of energy for us North Americans. Anyway, fantastic facility. So when the opportunity came up to own what the seller told me was a Bisley target rifle, I thought, well, I should buy it. And it's the Lee Enfield. You can recognize the action right away, and the magazine. What's unique about it is that it's in 7.62, so 308. It's a 30-inch barrel, and it's very well made. The barrel is excellent. You'll see I removed this rail. And why did I remove the rail? Because it doesn't sit properly in the stock, and the stock may have some handwork in it, and in fact, I'm sure it does. This epoxy, or whatever this material is, isn't properly flush, so it's at an angle, but it's easy for me to fix that. I really probably should have put it back in before filming, but it doesn't matter. Magazine follower looks very similar to the 303 British. I thought it would be notably different because it's in 308, but it's about the same. I should try a 303 magazine, see if it feeds. Probably won't. I did try the feeding and ejection with some dummy rounds, of course, and it works perfectly. The sights are superb, which is what you'd expect. And to me, it looks like something that you'd shoot. I guess you could shoot at 100 yards, but that seems too close. Maybe it's for 300 yards. Anyway, if anybody from Bisley watches the video, please let me know, would this be used at 300, or maybe they're obsolete now, which is why this is now in North America. Anyhow, lovely rifle to own. And I took out this rifle. Just to refresh your memory, you probably remember it from a recent video. I've always had great shooting success, and the purists are scolding me because of this pistol grip. But I'm really not adverse to any particular stock or rifle design. This one also has excellent aperture sights. I usually use the Cruder sight just because rate of fire and, that lovely 303 Lee Enfield action. Anyway, I look forward to taking the 7.62 out and filming for you. It has a recoil pad. I have to do something about this recoil pad. This is very common, and most of you will know this. I guess it was natural latex. It's poorly fitted in the first place, but aside from that, it's turned to stone, very hard. But before I get into anything else, I thought I'll tell you a little story, which does affect the channel. I was sort of hesitating telling you the following, but it probably will affect how the channel functions for a little while. So in early March, I started having some problems with balance, and just mechanical things started failing. Did anything define the beginning of this physical breakdown I was experiencing? Not really. I just started losing the function of my left hand. It started taking the shape of a bird's claw, very, very strange goings on. And my condition deteriorated over the course of a day. And it was hard to walk. It was hard for me to function. I thought I was having a stroke. My dad passed away when I was a young man. He had an aneurysm, so I thought, well, maybe it's my turn, in which case there's not much one can do except go to a hospital. So that's what I did. And I'll abbreviate the story so that I can get to the meaning of it all. And as it turned out, I didn't have a stroke or an aneurysm, but what was happening was blood was accumulating in my skull from a bleeding vessel. So they do CT scans and they're measuring and checking, and the blood was forming a pocket, quite a large pocket, and it had been bleeding already, which is why my brain was being pushed over in my head. So when they measured, it was well over a centimeter off center. You know how the hemispheres are supposed to be centered in your head, which is why the circuits in my brain weren't working, so my hand was becoming like a bird's claw and so on. The story ends, at least the hospital part, with, actually I was at one emergency ward, then I ended up in a operating room with a neurosurgeon, and the solution sounds primitive, but it works. He just drilled a hole in my head, and of course you're awake through this whole process. They drained a cup and a half or something like that, which I saw. They put the blood in little clear plastic containers, and it drained for a while. They left kind of a little clear hose in my head, and here I am. So I probably for about 3 months won't be rushing to shoot heavy recoiling rifles. In fact, I'll just stay away from, I think probably 243 would be about the maximum amount of recoil, and maybe less than that. And maybe the neurosurgeon who I meet in a week or so is going to say, don't shoot at all, in which case you're going to have to endure me sitting at this table talking about guns. But I have lots of guns to talk about. But we shall see what happens. So like I said, I didn't really want to burden you with this story, but it probably will affect the channel. You'll notice it's maybe even a little more dry and boring than usual, with these spontaneous bleedings of the brain. Hematoma, that was the word I was looking for. It can start bleeding anytime. So things happen, and no one knows why, but obviously some kind of fault in my construction could have ended badly, although if it's time to go, it's time to go. So that is my little personal story. And now getting back to the rifle, I did some research on these. You know, what kind of accuracy can one expect? And there are various stories. I'll have to talk to Adrian about the accuracy of these. I don't know the rate of twist, but looking at the bore, it looks like about a 1 in 12 twist. Maybe 1 in 10, but I think 1 in 12 is more likely. So, I mean, that would normally mean the regular 150 to 180 grain bullets. The wood you can see is nothing exceptional, but obviously not military issue. And this is a typical sort of bench rest profile to the forend. It's surprising, doesn't this look like a rifle that sort of weighs like 20 pounds? I don't know what it weighs, but it actually has a nice hang to it. I'm not sure if they're shooting off the bench or prone, but it's definitely not the kind of bull barrel target rifle where you just can't, even carry it around easily. So yeah, we'll shoot this and see how it performs. And as you know, I'm a practical shooter. I'm not expecting much better than, say, 1.5 inches or 2 inches, I would think. especially with the aperture sights, although sometimes I'm shocked and they shoot very, very well. Anyhow, once again, I'm not sure if this is one that showed up on North American shores or there are more, but the only way you can get a Lee Enfield, well, there are a couple of ways. You could get a custom Lee Enfield. I had 25 303s, and in Australia, they have all kinds of Wildcats based on the 303 that are wonderful. I can't remember what I shot once, not far from Darwin. I think it might have been a 6mm 303. Wonderful handling rifle. I don't know why we don't do more of that stuff. And then, again, from Australia, AIA, I think that's Australian International Arms, they made a 308 that shot beautifully. They had different versions. There might have been one in 7.62 by 39, but I either didn't have one for long or didn't have one, I can't remember. But the main ones were 308, and they came in kind of a battle configuration. They had very nice stocks, might have been teak, really nice rifles. But again, some people just want the original Lee Enfield action. And I haven't taken the stock off this, and the reason I'm bringing that up is evidently some people felt there's too much flex in this original military action, which the AIA doesn't have, that they beefed up the whole action for the 308, which operates at a higher pressure than the Lee Enfield. But apparently some of these actions were reinforced. There are steel components that they've added, so I'll have to see. I can't tell, where it would be on this one. Maybe I would see it already, but I've never seen one at all, so I don't know what it's supposed to look like. Anyway, fantastic to own something, different in the Lee Enfield. And as I've said too many times, we'll get out and shoot that. Anyhow, that's enough talking, and I can see the camera. People are getting exhausted. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care until then.